In all these wars, the Muslims took care not to inflict suffering on the innocent. They never wronged anyone, because God forbids this. Fight in the way of God against those who fight you, but do not go beyond the limits. God does not love those who go beyond the limits. According to Arab tradition, every prisoner of war had to be killed. But the Prophet, following God's commandment in the Revelations, ordered the Muslims to treat them well and to give them to eat from their own food. The only thing that was asked of them was for the literate prisoners to teach the illiterate among the Muslims. Probably for the first time in thousands of years, compassion, forgiveness, and civilization were seen on Arab soil. As the years passed, Islam's justice and high moral standards spread in waves around Arabia. The Muslims' fairness, integrity, and determination impressed many Arab tribes and caused them to enter the Islamic faith. Islam's army became unstoppable and marched on Mecca in 630. The pagans of Mecca, because of all the cruelty they had inflicted on the Muslims, feared their retribution. They fled in terror at the sight of the Islamic army. Arab tradition required the men of the defeated army to be put to the sword and for the women and children to be enslaved. The pagans of Mecca were certain that this was to be their fate. But the Prophet's actions reflected God's infinite mercy. He proclaimed that no revenge would be taken and that no one would be forced into accepting the Islamic faith. This great act of forgiveness and tolerance impressed Western historians.
When Muhammad came into Mecca, and not only did not carry out a bloody revenge, but actually embraced the very Meccans who had fought him for 3 years and attempted to annihilate him, it was very shocking to the people in his milieu. So within the very founding of a religion, one finds episodes of great generosity, often extraordinary acts of kindness and mercy.
The Prophet had not come to punish the people of Mecca, but to free them from their false beliefs. The Muslim army, having taken the city, headed straight for the Kaaba. The Prophet entered the holy site and destroyed all the idols there one by one. With them, all the cruelty, injustice, barbarism, and violence committed in their name were destroyed too. With the spread of the values of the Quran in Arabia, all the injustices, oppression, and blood feuds from the times of ignorance disappeared. An order based on respect, love, compassion, and justice between people was established. This is why this era was later to be named the Blessed Period. Islam continued to rise after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. In just a few decades, it spread to all of Mesopotamia and North Africa. And in the east, it reached as far as India. The Arabs, who only a few decades before had been herdsmen in the deserts of Arabia, became the rulers of a huge empire due to the superior wisdom, culture, and awareness they acquired thanks to Islam. In only 100 years, their empire spread over an area greater than the Roman Empire, and the rule they established was far stronger too. A diverse range of religious denominations was to be found living within that empire, especially Jews and Christians. The Muslims were very tolerant towards the different religious groupings in the lands they conquered. No one was forced to change their religion, and everyone's faith was respected. Synagogues and churches were protected at a time when forced change of religion was commonplace. The Muslims' tolerance was unique. One of the most remarkable examples of Islamic tolerance was experienced during the conquest of Jerusalem in 638 by the armies of Islam, led by the Caliph Omar. The Patriarch of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre feared that the Muslims would destroy the church. Omar made a friendly visit to the church and told them that they had nothing to fear. When the time for his prayer came, Omar took leave of the Patriarch, left the church, and performed his prayers nearby. Later on, the Al-Aqsa Mosque was to be built on the spot where Omar performed his first prayers in Jerusalem. The Muslims